In the vast emptiness of space where intelligent life forms compete to see who can be the most pretentious about their technological prowess, the Xorlaxian Hegemony had recently claimed the top spot. Not because they deserved it, heavens no, but because they shouted about it the loudest. The hegemony consisted of 7 species who had formed what they called a benevolent coalition. Translation, mutually beneficial arrangement to bully everyone else. They had mastered quantum entanglement drives, psychic communication networks, and self-repairing biomechanical ships. Impressive, sure, but they acted like they had invented sliced bread and the wheel simultaneously, while everyone else was still banging rocks together. Commander Vex'lar, a tall, spindly Xorlaxian with skin that shimmered like oil on water, stood on the command deck of the warship Inevitable Dominance, a name that compensated for something, surely. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he observed the small human vessel they had captured 3 rotations ago. "The execution is scheduled for the next cycle," announced Sub-Commander Zrill, whose species resembled what might happen if an octopus mated with a chandelier. "The humans have been processed according to protocol." Vex'lar made a dismissive gesture with his upper limbs. "These humans, so primitive. Did you know they still use silicon-based computing? And combustion engines in some of their vehicles? Practically Stone Age." The human captives had been separated into holding cells, all except one who now sat in the interrogation chamber. Eliza Khatri, according to the identification they'd recovered, was remarkably calm for someone about to be executed for trespassing in sovereign hegemony space, a designation the hegemony had unilaterally applied to a previously neutral star system approximately 16 hours before the humans entered it. "Bring the female to me," Vex'lar ordered. "I wish to understand their species better before we dispose of them." When the guards escorted Eliza in, Vex'lar was struck by how unimpressive humans looked. Bipedal, symmetrical, with only 2 eyes and no bioluminescence whatsoever. This particular specimen had dark skin, curly black hair cut short, and wore the gray jumpsuit of their captured vessel. The only remarkable thing was her complete lack of fear. "You understand your situation?" Vex'lar asked, his translator converting his melodic clicks into human English. Eliza nodded, glancing around the command center with what appeared to be professional interest rather than terror. "You've illegally seized our research vessel, declared us trespassers in neutral space, and now plan to execute us to make some kind of political statement. Did I miss anything?" Vex'lar's skin rippled with annoyance. "Your species' arrogance is remarkable, given your technological inferiority. Your vessel doesn't even have neural interfaces or consciousness-linked navigation." "No, we don't," Eliza agreed pleasantly, as if discussing the weather. Her eyes lingered on the pulsing conduits running along the ceiling. "We prefer manual redundancies and physical fail-safes. Old-fashioned that way, I guess." What Vex'lar and the entire hegemony failed to understand, a failure that would shortly prove catastrophic, was that humans hadn't avoided advanced technology out of inability. They had evaluated it, understood it, and often rejected it for practical reasons the hegemony had never considered. "Your execution will demonstrate the consequences of human expansion," Vex'lar declared grandly. Eliza's lips curved into what humans called a smile, but which many species throughout the galaxy had learned to recognize as a warning sign. "Before that happens," she said, "I should probably mention I'm an engineer." The interrogation chamber aboard the Inevitable Dominance was designed to intimidate. Shifting walls that seemed to breathe, lights that pulsed in frequencies known to cause discomfort in most species, and a chair that analyzed and amplified the subject's specific anxieties. None of it appeared to be working on Eliza Khatri. An engineer. Vex'lar's upper eyes narrowed, while his lower ones focused on her biometric readings. What sort of engineer would be on a simple research vessel? Systems engineer, specializing in cross-platform integration and emergency adaptations, Eliza replied, watching as a maintenance drone scuttled across the ceiling. I make things work together that weren't designed to, or fix things when they break in unexpected ways. Xorl made a sound like marbles in a garbage disposal, the hegemony equivalent of dismissive laughter. Human engineering is barely worth the term. You still use physical wiring in your ships? We do, Eliza nodded, shifting slightly in the interrogation chair. Quantum entanglement is impressive for data transmission, but terrible for reliability. One quantum fluctuation, and your whole network needs recalibration. Vex'lar circled her, his movements deliberately predatory. You speak as if your primitive approaches have merit. Yet here you sit, captured by our superior technology. Superior is subjective, Eliza said, eyes tracking the pulsing blue energy conduit overhead. That plasma relay, for instance, beautiful design, but you're running it at what? 80% capacity? The containment field harmonics are already showing micro-fluctuations. The commander froze mid-step. How could you possibly? The sound, she explained. It's cycling at 340 Hz with a secondary harmonic at 1020. That pattern indicates field instability in any plasma system, regardless of who built it. Xorl hurried to a console, confirming her observation with obvious alarm. Vex'lar's skin darkened to a deep purple, the Xorlaxian equivalent of an embarrassed flush. A lucky guess, he snapped. Or perhaps your species has better hearing than our records indicate. Eliza shrugged. Not particularly. But we do pay attention. Like how your life support redundancies are networked through the same quantum channel as your weapons systems. That's an interesting choice. The interrogation room suddenly felt smaller to Vex'lar. This human wasn't behaving like any prisoner he'd encountered before. Most begged, threatened, or retreated into terrified silence. This one was analyzing his ship. Enough, he barked. Your technical observations won't save you. The execution proceeds as scheduled. Just making conversation, Eliza said mildly. By the way, those neural interfaces your crew uses, they're calibrated for Xorlaxian brainwave patterns, right? Must be hard for the other species in your hegemony to fully integrate. Vex'lar stiffened. This was a known issue. The Xorlaxians maintained technological superiority within the hegemony by ensuring key systems responded best to their specific neural patterns. How had she deduced this from mere observation? Take her to holding until the execution, he ordered the guards, and restrict her access to any ship systems. As they escorted her out, Eliza glanced at a maintenance panel they passed. You might want to check junction T47, she commented casually. That coolant pressure seems dangerously high. After she left, Vex'lar found himself ordering a technician to inspect the junction, which indeed showed signs of imminent failure. The commander's unease grew. The human hadn't touched anything, hadn't accessed any terminals, yet somehow she was reading his ship like an open book. Commander, Xorl approached hesitantly, perhaps we should expedite the execution. Vex'lar nodded slowly. Prepare the chamber immediately. I want this done before she notices anything else. What neither of them realized was that Eliza had already noticed everything she needed to. The execution chamber gleamed with the cold efficiency that the hegemony prided itself on. A transparent dome surrounded a central platform where the condemned would stand. When activated, the chamber would rapidly cycle through extreme temperatures, gravitational forces, and atmospheric compositions, essentially subjecting the victim to the environments of all 7 hegemony homeworlds simultaneously. No species could survive it. The hegemony considered this culturally inclusive punishment. Eliza was brought in with her fellow crewmates, all 6 humans lined up before the chamber. Captain Darius Mbeki, Navigator Thomas Okafor, Xenobiologist Lena Patel, Communications Officer Hiroshi Watanabe, and Security Chief Valentina Kuznetsova stood in grim silence. Unlike Eliza, they hadn't spent the last several hours studying the ship's systems. "Any last words before your species learns the price of expansion?" Vex'lar announced, surrounded by a delegation of all 7 hegemony species. "Just one question," Eliza said. "That execution chamber, it draws power directly from your main reactor, doesn't it?" Vex'lar's skin rippled with irritation. "Your technical curiosity persists even now?" "Yes. Only the main reactor provides sufficient energy for the multi-environmental execution process." "Interesting design choice," Eliza remarked, subtly shifting her weight to press her heel against a specific point on the floor. "Especially routing it through the same conduits as your shield generators." A barely perceptible vibration traveled through her boot into the deck plating, a frequency specifically calibrated to resonate with the crystalline structure of Xorlaxian technology. Nothing dramatic, just a harmonic disruption that would propagate through connected systems. "Enough delays," Vex'lar signaled to the guards. "Place the first human in the chamber." As they moved toward Captain Mbeki, the lights flickered. Once, twice, then stabilized. "Minor power fluctuation," reported a technician. "Compensating." Eliza flexed her fingers, pressing her thumb against a small device concealed in her palm. A simple electromagnetic pulse generator she'd fashioned from components pilfered during her transfer between cells. Not powerful enough to damage systems directly, but perfect for triggering the cascade she'd set in motion with the resonance frequency. The execution chamber's transparent dome suddenly darkened, then cleared, then darkened again. "What's happening?" demanded Zrill. "The chamber's drawing irregular power," the technician replied, mandibles clicking anxiously. "And the shield generators are fluctuating in the same pattern." Vex'lar spun toward Eliza, who stood perfectly still, expression neutral. "What have you done?" "Me? I'm just standing here," she replied as warning klaxons began to sound throughout the ship. The ship's lighting shifted to emergency mode as the main view screen filled with alerts. The resonance had spread through the connected systems, creating feedback loops in the quantum-entangled networks. Because the hegemony had designed their systems to be so interconnected, a feature they boasted about, the disruption was propagating exponentially. "Main reactor approaching critical feedback. Shields failing. Weapons systems offline," shouted various crew members as chaos erupted on the bridge. "How is this possible?" Vex'lar grabbed Eliza's jumpsuit. "You've accessed nothing. Touched nothing." "That's the thing about over-integrated systems," Eliza explained calmly as the ship shuddered around them. "They're elegant when working properly, but one precisely calculated disruption can cascade through everything. We humans prefer separation of critical systems for exactly this reason." The guards' neural interfaces suddenly emitted painful feedback, causing them to clutch their heads and drop their weapons. The human prisoners quickly collected them. "Captain," Eliza nodded to Mbeki, "I believe the bridge is this way." As they moved to take control of the ship, Vex'lar stared in disbelief. "Our technology is generations beyond yours." "Advanced isn't always better," Eliza replied, pausing at the door. "It's just different, with different vulnerabilities. You might want to evacuate the tertiary engine section. That coolant issue I mentioned earlier is about to become problematic." As if on cue, distant alarms confirmed her prediction. 3 hours later, Commander Vex'lar sat in his own brig, watching Eliza Khatri repair the ship's systems through the cell's monitoring screen. His 4 eyes blinked asynchronously, a sign of extreme stress in Xorlaxians. "I don't understand," he finally said when she came to check on the prisoners. "How did you disable an advanced warship with nothing but vibrations?" Eliza leaned against the doorframe. "Your technology isn't more advanced than ours, Commander. It's just different. We could have built ships with fully integrated neural networks and quantum-entangled systems decades ago. We chose not to." "But why reject such elegance?" asked a Palaxian scientist from the adjacent cell, their crystalline form shimmering with confusion. "Because elegance is often the enemy of resilience," Eliza explained. "Your ships are marvels when everything works perfectly. Ours keep working when things go wrong." She activated a holographic display showing the approaching human fleet, 15 vessels of varying sizes, all responding to the distress signal she'd managed to transmit during the initial capture. "Those ships look primitive," Zrill observed from his cell. "They look functional," Eliza corrected. "Physical buttons that work even during power failures. Isolated systems that can't all be compromised simultaneously. Mechanical backups for digital systems. We build technology assuming it will fail and need human intervention." The lead human vessel established communication, its captain appearing on screen, a gray-haired woman with deep laugh lines around her eyes. "Admiral Okonkwo," Eliza saluted. "Thank you for the prompt response." "When our best systems engineer sends a distress code, we don't dawdle," the Admiral replied. "I see you've made yourself at home on their ship." "Just applying some cross-platform integration," Eliza smiled. Vex'lar watched this exchange with dawning comprehension. "You're not just an engineer. You're their weapons developer." "No," Eliza shook her head. "I'm exactly what I said. A systems engineer. The difference is that humans don't see the distinction between building systems and understanding how to take them apart. Every engineer knows both." Admiral Okonkwo's expression grew serious. "The diplomatic corps is preparing terms for the hegemony. Primary among them is a technology exchange program." "Exchange?" Vex'lar's skin paled. "You want our superior technology?" "No," the Admiral smiled. "We want to teach you ours, starting with basic redundancy principles and failure mode engineering." The human fleet surrounded the hegemony vessel, not with weapons charged, but with docking tubes extended, bringing teachers, not soldiers. 6 months later, Eliza Khatri stood before the Hegemony High Council as the newly appointed Director of Interspecies Engineering Education. The chamber, once decorated with displays of hegemony technological achievements, now featured diagrams of human-designed backup systems and mechanical fail-safes. "The first graduating class of hegemony engineers has completed their training," she announced. "They've already implemented critical safety improvements on 17 vessels." The High Counselor, a Xorlaxian elder, nodded reluctantly. "Our arrogance nearly cost us everything. We mistook complexity for advancement." "A common error," Eliza said diplomatically. "The most sophisticated technology often looks deceptively simple." As the meeting concluded, Vex'lar, now serving as liaison between human instructors and hegemony students, approached her. "I've been studying your Earth history," he said. "Your species nearly destroyed itself multiple times with technological hubris." "We did," Eliza acknowledged. "That's why we learned to respect the simple solution, to value the engineer who asks, 'What happens when this fails?' over the one who creates something merely impressive. Outside the council chambers, a class of hegemony cadets was disassembling and reassembling a mechanical airlock system under the watchful eye of Captain Mbeki. "They're making progress," Eliza observed. "Yes," Vex'lar agreed, "though many still struggle with the concept of a technology being simultaneously less advanced and more reliable." Eliza smiled as she watched a young Palaxian successfully complete the manual override procedure. The universe has a sense of humor that way. Sometimes the most advanced thing you can do is take a step backward. In the space dock visible through the massive windows, hegemony ships were being retrofitted with human-designed backup systems, physical controls alongside neural interfaces, mechanical overrides for quantum systems. The vessels would be less elegant, perhaps, but infinitely more survivable. "The greatest advancement," Eliza mused, watching the work proceed, "isn't building something no one else understands. It's building something anyone can fix."